Hello and welcome to today's 26R1 release webinar. My name is Steve Tompkins, product manager here at Sage. We are going to be talking about our 26R1 release today. We do have a number of people in the chat, so if you do have questions, we encourage you to ask them through the chat. We have a lot of things we want to try to cover today, so I'm going to move fairly quickly here and get into the system. I do want to point out just very quickly, our release date for this is planned to be on Monday, May 4th. It'll be early in the morning. So when you come into the office on May 4th, everything that you see today, plus there's a lot more that I don't have time to cover today, but all those things will be released and available for you. So let's go ahead and get started into the system here so you get a nice sneak peek of what we have coming up. All right, so here is a quick agenda of what we're going to try to cover today, get through everything here. So general improvements, we'll talk about those, HR, payroll, and time changes, performance and compensation, applicant tracking and recruiting, the mobile app, and some reports. All right, so let's talk about the general improvements in the UI, UX throughout the system here. You actually can't see it right here on this screen right now because all of my little widgets and everything are filled. There's something in all of them. If you come across a widget or a screen where there is a blank, we actually have changed that so we show something there. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. I'm going to go over into the admin side. And you'll see here as I go to different screens, we now show something where previously there was a blank. So you'll be able to see this here. For example, here I haven't selected a report yet, so we just showed that there's a kind of a placeholder there. If I go down to different things as they load, it'll show something like that just very quickly until the system loads something, just to let you know that it's not stuck. It's just that you need to do something in order to get information to appear there. For example, I need to choose a table, and then it will show values here and that. And so you would see that in self-service as well as you're going through and maybe there's no tasks for you to complete right now or no notifications. You would see a little indication here, a little icon indicating that there's nothing there to look at. So helps to just clarify that it's not that something isn't loaded or waiting to load or something like that, just allowing you to know that that's how the system should go there. All right. So that is an example of that. So it's just another evolution of our UI to just make it clear that we're not waiting or there's some type of thing missing. All right, so that you'll see that throughout the system, both here in self-service and in admin. As you're looking at information, you'll see that right there. Another change here in the self-service, but also in mobile, and I will go into mobile in a little bit, is in the external links, we now support folders. And so here you'll see an example of this. In my external links, I have a folder called company, and then I open that up and there's a couple of links that go to some company directory and company videos right here. So these are things you can create very easily within the system. What I'll do is I'll go into the settings, show you where you can set that up very quickly here. So the files and stuff are going to be in here. They are called links. So if you in the settings type in links right here, you'll see how it's highlighted. The only option for links here is under general self-service links. Of course, I could go under general and click on self-service links. But when I come here you'll see that folder I've created. To create a folder, you simply click the little drop down here and you choose add a folder. All right, so that's how you create whatever number of folders you want to do there. Perhaps you're going to say, useful links or something like that. All right, create a folder there. You'll notice here it's added it. And if I want to add things into that folder, it's a simple drag and drop. So maybe I want to put that in there. Do I want to move it? Yes, I do. And I'll move this forms into there. All right, and of course I can move things out of folders. I can move things between folders if I want to drag company videos into useful links or move it out of company down into this area, just a drag and drop. When you're adding a new link, you don't choose a folder here. You create the link and then you drag it into their appropriate folder. All right, and then once you do that, you would see that I just need to hit refresh. I would see that here in self-service to be able to do this. Of course, I would also see this in the mobile app. All right, here's, as you can see, some of the things as it's loading. Right, so now you'll see that folder there. So just a nice little addition into the external links. We're going to go ahead and put up a quick poll on these improvements here. While we're polling you on this here, I do want to mention that in administration, when you go to support, we still are always looking for your ideas, what you think might make the product better, what you're seeing, what you could find useful for yourself and perhaps for others. You could submit these ideas here. Maybe you have another idea about how to organize folders or things like that. You can submit ideas right here. So we encourage you to do this. Every administrative user has access to be able to come over here and do this. And you can create your own post out here for your ideas. As you can see, some people have submitted some ideas recently. It looks like Brian is adding a lot of things in there. So we go through these, we evaluate these, and we bring this into the roadmap. If it makes a lot of sense, we add that to the roadmap. And we're not going to make any promises. We've had thousands of things submitted, and of course, not everything gets brought into the system. But we do, as part of our product team, we go through this and we, review everything and add in and make enhancements based off of that. All right, let's talk about some changes in HR, in human resources here. So the first one is an additional field for preferred name. This is visible here in self-service and of course also in HR. If I go to demographics here, I'm going to see a new field here. Well, there's two fields now. There's the preferred first name. This was always here. Previously, in fact, many versions ago, this was called nickname. It has been renamed to preferred first name. Now we have a preferred last name. So that might help for people who've had a name change. Perhaps they got married or they've changed their last name and they want to have that new name show right here. Or maybe they prefer a certain name, but legally they have a different name for, maybe tax purposes or something. So you can have those there. This will be used in various places so that the preferred first name and preferred last name will be used in places like employee lists, in org charts and things like that. So you'll be able to see that in the mobile app and everything. So we can use these names instead of their legal names if they are different. Or, perhaps like me, my first name is actually Stephen, but I go by Steve. So, I might have that as my preferred first name there. And of course, I can see this in HR. If I bring up an employee, you'll see here's Chuck. His preferred first name is Jack, and he doesn't have a last name, but you can see that I'd have those. So those are here available for you to use if you'd like to use those. Have your employees use those. All right. The next thing is dynamic onboarding task due dates. So what we're talking about here is in the onboarding. First off, we'll look in the configuration of onboarding, which is going to be under HR administration. And I'll go into this onboarding task list I have right here. So currently, if you were to go into your onboarding, let's say I click on this task, you'll have a place where you can put a due in a number of days. Now, you don't have to put anything if you don't have a specific due date. But what this will do is it will take the date you add the list to somebody, and it will put that number of days from then. So if I added a list to somebody today, and I had a 3 in there, in fact, let me click into one where I have something like that, it'll say that it's due in 5 days. So it would be due on the 29th in my example. That's going to be the day that I assigned it. So it's always going to be 5 days from the day that I assigned it. Same type of thing would happen in pre-boarding. It's going to be the days I assigned it. Now you can use things like the hire date. So I can say employee hire date +3. That's going to take their hire date. So let's say they're not hired until May 1st. I may have put them in the system already. I want the due date to be May 4th. So at hire date +3 is going to take the hire date and add 3 days there. I could, of course, not add anything. I could just say add hire date. That'll be the date of hire. Of course, I could still use the number just by itself. And there is a way this is handled with pre-boarding tasks. So, of course, with a candidate, when we're assigning pre-boarding tasks to them, they don't have a hire date yet. So if I have hire date in there, it is not going to put a due date on there because they don't have a hire date yet, and there's no due date when that's assigned. If I have at hire date +3, it'll just add 3 days from the date of assignment because we don't know yet what their hire date is. And then, of course, if they just have a 3 in there, it's going to act like it currently does and make it due in 3 days. So it does do that. And then the same type of thing with a new hire, of course, when we have them in as an employee, we know their hire date. You filled that in during the hire process, and it will use that in there. All right, so very useful for things like new hire and rehire in that it can read those dates and assign them dynamically instead of having to maybe go through and change them. Now, of course, you can go through and change them. If I go to an employee and it's come up with a due date for a particular task, and of course, this is under the, I don't know why I clicked on documents, the advanced profile. You'll see onboarding here, and I have due dates. Now, I can't touch the due dates for ones that are completed, but these ones that are open, If I want to change them, I can always come in and change them. I could remove them. I could reassign it to a different day, like maybe I want to do today as an example. And oh, I guess I've got some required field, but I can change this one here. But this is where that due date is on the task for the employee. They will see that in self-service. So there'll be a little red date on there to show that. All right, so those are a couple of changes in HR. Again, we're going to put up a poll on this one here just to get your feelings on those changes in HR before we move on to payroll. All right, a few more seconds here. All right, thank you so much for that. All right, so let's talk about a number of payroll things. So first off is on the expense report, of course, you can attach documents to that expense report when you're submitting them as an employee. So if I go to my expense reports, which are here under pay, if I wanted to attach something to an expense, let's see if I have one here, not submitted, I went to go visit the client, I can attach something to this. So perhaps I have a receipt for parking. I can go out there, browse, and I can upload a receipt here. So let's just add that and upload that right there. So here you'll see I can actually preview it right here, and this will show that document right there. And of course, when I submit this for approval, I might want to have the manager, whoever is doing the approvals, be able to see that document on there, so they can come in and they can preview that as well. And then also in payroll, if I were to go to somebody's expense report here, and I don't know if this person has one, but let me go to the guy I was just looking at. If he has an attachment out there for something, I would be able to view that over here. Now, I'm just picking one. I don't know if he has one, but I'd be able to preview that right here. So that way I don't have to download it to my computer. I can just look at it on the screen and be able to, maybe just say, yes, that's right. He got gas. He spent $25 on gas or whatever it was that he's asking for the reimbursement for. Of course, I can still download them if I want to download them. Maybe I need it for some type of backup in accounting or something. I can, of course, download those. So a nice way to save downloads. You're not flooding your computer with things that you just need to look at very briefly, and very nice to be able to do that. All right. The next change, or the next two changes, are around workers' compensation and the way that it is calculated out here. So I'm going to kind of talk at a high level on how this works here. When you're setting up workers' compensation, there's a number of things you can do here. So here's a great example of how this can work. I have employees in two different states, some people in Nevada, some people in California. Different rates, as you can see, for the two different states out here. So if I have a clerical employee, they're working in Nevada, it's going to use the rate here. If they're working in California, it's going to use rate there. Now, how do we know where they're working and what they're doing? So it could be that they're just in that office in Nevada, or they're in the office in California, and they're not traveling around. They're just stationed there. That's where their home office is. And so that's the rate that's going to apply to them. And that's great. So we can assign that to the employee and say, your code 8810, you're in California, here's your rate. You're in Nevada, here's your rate, or whatever. As you can see, I have other ones down here for other states. So that's, of course, assigned on the employee level. And just in case you don't know where that is, it's on the primary position screen. If I go down, I would see a field called workers' compensation. So this is going to look at his location and calculate the rate for that. Now, if this person is on the move, they're out working on projects, they're traveling around to different states, to different projects. So it will look at the project work location and determine the rate on that. So if he might be stationed, his home office is in California, but sometimes he travels to Nevada to do, work over there. And so what we're going to see is on the project, this is not anything new. We have a workers' comp code that, excuse me, is going to be on the project. So I can override that right here. You'll see there's a workers' compensation code for this that's going to override what's on the employee and use this instead of his 8810. So if he goes and works over here at the sanitary facilities, which is in Ashland, Oregon, it's going to charge 0302 masonry construction. All right. So even though that guy is normally an 8810 in California, when he's working on this project in Ashland, Oregon, it's going to then use this workers' compensation code. Now, Sometimes you have a project with many different tasks. They may have different workers' comp codes for different things that they are doing at that project. So I'm just going to click into one here. And let's say, this particular one, I've got a different workers' comp code for this task. A great example would be you have a carpenter and they're doing some finish carpentry. So they have a workers' comp code that is tied to being, doing that finish carpentry. Their job title doesn't change. They're still a carpenter, but they're doing the finish carpentry. Somewhere else, they go and do a different task, and it's some rough-in carpentry, and that has a different workers' comp code associated with that. So you can set this up now at the task level. This will override what is on the project, and of course, it's overriding what's on the employee. If this is blank, it'll of course go to the project. If the project's blank, it's going to go back to the employee. And of course, all of it's going to look at the state that the employee is in or the province if there's a provincial one for Canada. All right, so that's how workers' comp works here. The addition is in tasks where we've now added that. All right, we also have added into the income codes the ability to select whether or not an income has workers' comp applied to it. All right, so you'll see here a new checkbox on income codes that says exclude from WC, workers' comp. That's what that means there. So what we can now do is say that maybe bonus is not included in the workers' comp calculation here, and I can just simply check this box. All right, so can do that right there. Maybe a more useful example might be we have a reimbursement. The reimbursement is not something they have to pay workers' comp on because you're just paying back the employee for money they've spent. So you would exclude that from workers' comp. Okay, this needs to be set up on an individual income basis. I can't just say all reimbursements are set up this way or all flat amounts or something. I would need to go to the individual income codes and do this. And of course, income codes are set up per employer. So if I have multiple employers, perhaps they all have this airfare income code, I'd have to go to each one that's in there. But that should make it very easy when you are doing your calculations for workers' comp to say, don't include this income. There's no formulas you need to write or anything like that. All right, so workers' comp, a little deep dive into that and how that works there. We've made a few performance enhancements here. These are not something I can show you per se here in a webinar or in a demo, but the horizontal timesheet submission, especially when there are many, many tasks on a horizontal timesheet, we've greatly improved the performance of the system when submitting those horizontal timesheets. So if you're using horizontal timesheets, you should see that submission time cut way down when you hit to submit and approve those timesheets. All right, and then the same type of thing in payroll processing. So we've had some improvements in the performance optimization there. So things like generating reports, exporting journal ledger entries, downloading batches of documents is now significantly faster. All right, and it doesn't matter if you have one employer or 100 employers or any number of employers. If you have a lot of active payroll batches or not, it doesn't matter. It's going to remain consistent across the board. So we've reduced the time that it takes to complete these tasks, and hopefully it's very obvious when you start doing your payrolls. You'll see those enhancements around the performance. And then finally, if there's anybody in the webinar in the UK, we of course have updated the taxes for the UK. As I'm sure you're aware, the taxes for the UK change on April 1st. So it actually happened a few weeks ago that we did those updates, but we're just making the announcement now. And then we also have now added support for, hang on a second. We've added support for the student loan plan number 5. All right, so that is the payroll enhancements. We're going to, again, put a poll up for this. So if we can get your feedback here. Yeah, we do thank you for your feedback. Of course, not everybody's a payroll, so we understand it may not be relevant for everybody, but we do appreciate your feedback on that. All right, so let's talk about some things in time and scheduling. So first off is making it a little bit more clear when we do project timesheet submissions, which time entries these approvers are approving. And so just so we could talk about how that works here, when we are doing approvals, you can have approvals by project. So what you would need to do is on the projects, I'll just very quickly cover this. You can set up what are called project org levels. I've made one here called project supervisor. You can have 4 of these. So you might have supervisor, foreman, time administrator, whatever it might be. Those are your labels for them. But you can select a person, or, if I have 4, up to 4 people that are in a supervisory position, maybe an approval position for projects. And when I'm submitting time in the workflow for timesheets, you can tell it to go to those people for approvals. So in the timesheet submission, you will see an option here for a performer that says project org type. So you might have the very first verifier on your timesheet approval be that project supervisor, or maybe you've got multiple. Maybe you've got a foreman who does it, and then it goes to a project supervisor after that, and then it goes over to payroll or somebody like that. So you build out your workflow. But if you're using this project org type, we want to make it clear to the person who is the project supervisor or whatever that is, what they are actually approving. So what we do is on the timesheet, we've now highlighted those records that they are approving. So they will see clearly on the approval screen the exact entries that they're approving. It's not that you couldn't see it before, it just wasn't nearly as obvious. So we've made it a little more clear. It's kind of back to that UI, UX. We want to make it clear to people what they are verifying and or approving. Okay, reattestation of timesheet edits. So you may be aware that when somebody is clocking out, there can be an attestation that would show. So here I'm going to show you, I'm going to clock in, and I'll go show you where that is set up. But what it will do is when I clock out at the end of the day, I will attest that something. You can put in whatever you like as the message. And again, let me show you right here. So in the timesheet layout, there is a field here that says attestation message. And here you'll notice I have a message that says, I had no reportable injuries or incidents today. And this is in English. And of course, I can have it in other languages. If I want to put it in French and Spanish and Arabic, I can do that. And this will show when I go to clock out. I can make it so they have to put a note in if they don't agree with whatever that message is. So if there's something in here and they say no, we'll go ahead and ask them for a reason why they're saying no. This is the update right here, which is the on time update. What that means is if I change the time after the fact, I've clocked out and now I need to go change the time, we're going to show that attestation message again. All right, so let's show you what that attestation message looks like. I'm going to go to the time entry so I can show both parts of it. So here you can see here's that clock in at 9:22. It's been a minute. And so if I clock out, here's the attestation message. Now, this is not on the update. This is me simply clocking out for the end of my shift, perhaps. And here you'll notice I can say yes or no. And when I say no, the note field is now required. You'll notice here when I hit yes, it's not required. All right, so you can kind of see that. So whatever I'm going to say, I can do that, and it's going to clock out. Now, I might come in and say, you know what, I forgot to clock in when I got here this morning, so I need to fix this time right here. And because I'm fixing the time, my hours are going to change, or my minutes if I just go back a few minutes. But let's say I go back to 6:22 a.m. and I do this, it's popping up that message again. So it's popping that up because I've checked this box specifically. So that's why that's popping up there. And of course, if I had, now I'm selecting no and I put a note in there, it's going to save that. So we're actually saving both. We're saving the original attestation and any other update attestations. So you can see that right there. And of course, here's an example, the timesheet update. That is another function within the system. Just so you can see, here's the time update warning. You don't need to enable this along with this. It's up to you on how you do that. But this is asking why. So I say, I forgot to clock in. All right. And now it's saved that right there. And of course, you'll see there's that reattestation right there on this. Now, if I just go and change, let's say the task, that's not changing the time. So it's still 1 minute. And so it doesn't require me to attest again. All right. So it's only if I'm changing the time. Now, if I had it, so I'm not doing in and out and I'm doing total time instead, maybe I change 4.5 hours to 5.5 hours or something like that. Again, that's going to be a reattestation. So that is something you can enable if you need it. And of course, that isn't on each timesheet layout. So if you have multiple timesheet layouts like I have, you'd have to do it for each one where you want to have that happen. All right, so this is the timesheet changes that we've done out here. Let's talk about some of the scheduling changes. First off, when I'm actually going to do the scheduling. So I'm going to add employees to the schedule. Currently, in our existing version, if I go to the scheduling and I want to assign people to a schedule, I need to do this one by one. So let's say I go out to this welders one and I want to schedule some additional people down here on this 2141 project. So I come down here and I hit plus, and currently what you would do is you could select one person at a time. So maybe I assign Judith, and then I would want to assign Roger and Timothy or something like that. I'd have to do this 3 times. Certainly not the most efficient way of doing it. What we've now done is said, okay, let's just add this little checkbox over here. And now I'm going to schedule these 4 people all at once. You'll see here, this button down here, I can clear out what I've checked off. So if I'm not sure, if I, maybe I did this and I didn't know how to clear it out or whatever, I can hit the clear selection. That goes away if I don't have anything selected. But once I have those people selected, I can click add employee and all 3 get added. So a nice little feature. This was a customer feature request that came through, and it made a lot of sense. So that's why we added that in there. So that's an example of that right there. Now, another example of things that might happen is, of course, we have that notification that goes out when a schedule is published. So if I go to publish this schedule, it's going to notify all 6 of these people that the schedule for next week has been published. So if I come out here, I should see a notification. Now, I just happened to notice that that person actually didn't have a schedule. But here you'll see an example. This is one I did yesterday. The schedule for the week of the 19th is now available to view. So that's already here. That's been here for a little while. What we now have is if I go and change the schedule. So if I go into Gary here and I say, oh, on Monday, I'm going to go ahead and add something in here. Let's just say, very simply do 9 to 12. All right, so I'm adding in 9 to 12 here. And go ahead and change that. And maybe I add in Thursday here. All right, and I'll do 9 to 12 on Thursday as well. Or if I change an existing one, perhaps he was already scheduled 9 to 12, or maybe I come down here to Judith and I say, well, we don't need you at 7, we need you at 8. So I change something down here. When I hit save, it'll send a notification to these employees that their schedule has changed. It's not going to send it to everybody. It's only going to send it to Gary and to Judith that their schedule has changed. Okay? Because it's published and I made that change, they're going to get that notification. Now, where is that notification configured? First off, you'll want to make sure it's turned on if you want to send that out. So it's under your notifications in system configuration here. You'll see first off the notification itself. What I always find easiest is to search, use the search box. You don't have to do this. You can scroll down and find it. But here you'll see schedule published. That's what I mentioned when I published the schedule. That's this one. You'll want to make sure that's enabled if you want to use it. So first off, this turns on the entire notification. This turns on where does it go. Maybe you don't want to use email. You just want to use text and push, which is the mobile app. So you can do something like that. Perhaps I want to turn on everything under scheduling. I can do this here. And here's the updated one. So you'll want to make sure this is enabled if you want to use it. And then decide where is it going to go. Now you'll see in my example, I actually don't have ESS on, which is why I didn't see it over here. I didn't realize I didn't have it on. I think I turned it off in a previous webinar. So I would have to turn that on. Now I did get something in my mobile app. And so what's going to do is going to send it out. If I change it again, I would see it in self-service. Now, if I want to see the actual message, it's under notification layouts. And again, you can search here down to scheduling. And here is the messaging. You'll notice we have one for email, SMS, ESS, and push. SMS, ESS, and push are very similar. You'll see it just says your schedule has changed. So these are kind of simple notifications. We're directing you back into the system, whether it's through self-service or mobile, to see those changes. With email, we have a little bit more flexibility. Email, we can have formatting and stuff like that. So we can actually have an email that shows what changed. So it might say on Monday, you are now scheduled from 9 to 12, and on Wednesday from 9 to 12. So it would have a little grid down here showing what was changed. You'll see here, this is a new token called scheduled start date. So it would show, I think it was 4/26, the beginning of the week. So it would show that there. And then this would have ones for the days that changed. All right, so that's that. If you want to change this, certainly you can come in, you can modify this. If you do make a change, of course, and you want to reset it back to the beginning, you can revert it. All right, so those are the scheduling update notifications and the multi-select for this scheduling. So we're going to go ahead and put another poll up here about the time and scheduling. Again, thank you for joining us today. And we do have the chat open. If you do have questions, we have some people that are monitoring the chat. We can answer questions in there. Of course, if you have questions after the fact, you can just reach out to support or to your partner to get those questions answered for you. All right. Thank you so much for that feedback. Okay, let's look under performance and compensation. So, a few things around how performance now works. So, first off, is an improvement to the way that the reviews look after they have been posted for you to look at. What I'm talking about is if I go to my performance reviews here, and this change affects both reviews for myself as well as the team reviews. And what we recognize is that when you're viewing the reviews here, the report itself, if you were to download the report, it looked really nice. It didn't match up with what you're seeing in self-service. I don't mean the data was different. It's just that self-service wasn't as nice looking as the report. Now I think it looks just as nice as the report. So what we've done is we've kind of cleaned up the UI a little bit here. So first off, you'll see goals are grouped up right here at the top. All right, so we got goal attainment. Here's my personal goals. Here's my attendance goals, and I can see in a description, my comments, my scores, and everything on there. And so it looks very nice and very well organized there. We've done the same thing under competencies. We've grouped them up here, and each one is in its own little section here. And of course, you can see the description. This didn't look great previously, and now I think it looks much better, and it matches what the report looks like. You'll see here if I download the report, looks really nice, and it looks very similar to what you're seeing there. All right, so that was another suggestion that came from you as our customers, that you want to make it so this looks really nice here. And of course, you'll see down here, it looks very nice. All right, this is also visible if I were to go to the team reviews and look at somebody, it's going to have this same look and feel. All right, so we do want to thank you for your feedback on that. I think it was well needed. Let's talk about the improvements around goals. And these are both personal goals and company goals. So what we're talking about here, and let me bring up a performance review. As you may know, you can assign personal goals to an employee, and of course, you can assign company goals to everybody within the review period. So you'll see here personal goals and company goals for this person right here. Now, what we've done is, again, based off of your feedback, in the review template, and this is the template I'm looking at, I just had up on screen here, you can now tell it to not include the goals in the scoring. So it won't show them at the bottom of the review, even though it is up there at the top where I actually show those goals. So it's perhaps you just want to get their feedback on that, and maybe you're going to do some analytics or reports on it, but it doesn't affect their overall score. Rather than showing a score that might be confusing, and they're saying, well, I got 100%, but for whatever reason, my performance review score is very low or something, you can say, you know what, let's just not include the company goals here. You'll see here the total is now 80%. Previously, it was 100 because it was 60, 20, 20. So I would need to go and change this, maybe make it 60, 40, something like that. And I'll go ahead and save that there. So let me go ahead and I'm going to refresh this one. Let me go to somebody else and I'll come back to Harrison. All right, so it still has the company goals here. Where'd that go? Just refresh that there. It still have the company goals and the personal goals up at the top, assuming there's personal goals and company goals assigned, but it won't include those in the bottom of this. So you'll see here, we still have this here. And I'll go down and I'm just going to quickly go past these competencies. And you'll see here the company goal is not included. And of course, that weighting, I think it was 60-40. So we're getting a 70% because of the 72 and the 66. If you did the math, that's where we get the 70%. All right, so we're kind of ignoring the company goals in the scoring. We're not showing it down here, so there's no confusion about that. And of course, the weighting is still applied right here. Now, the other thing is sometimes you do want to have personal goals or company goals that are scored and would be included in the overall score, but maybe a particular employee doesn't have a personal goal. Or maybe you forgot to add company goals to the review period, which can happen. What we're going to do now is if there is a zero, they didn't have any goals added to them, we're going to ignore that. We're not going to penalize the employee simply because the personal goals are missing. So here's an example of this. This person does not have any personal goals. And if I go back to the template, you'll see that I have a split of 60, 20, 20. So it would be a little unfair to this person to judge them like they got a zero on their personal goals because they didn't have any personal goals. So let's not be unfair to this person and give and factor in this 0%. So now what we do is we look at if there is no goals for personal or no goals on their company, we're going to ignore it. We will automatically fix the weighting here by just basically zeroing this out for that individual. And we're going to say, okay, if because he has no personal goals, we're going to now rebalance this. This is going to be 60 plus 20. So we're going to act like the total is 80. And then we're going to do that weighting based off of that. So 60 divided by 80 is going to give me a 75% weight for the competencies and a 25% weight for the company goals. So we're not punishing the employee because they don't have any personal goals. That's why this is not much lower. Previously, we actually punished the employee because it would treat it like this was zero, which it's not their fault. There were no personal goals there or no company goals. So we no longer are doing that. All right. So that is has been recalculated on how that works right there. All right. So that was great feedback again from our clients here on how that worked. And so we've added that into the system there. All right, now we're going to look at the 9-box grid, and we have the option now to export out the 9-box grid. So if you're not familiar where that is located here, I'm going to go to my reports, and I'm going to see 9-box grid down here at the bottom. All right, now this one here is very configurable. You may remember in our last update 3 months ago, we added the ability to change these labels and change the colors and everything like that so that you can have it look the way that you like. And certainly, you probably have good ideas for how you want your color schemes to look, and that's great. But now we have the ability to export this out to either a PDF or Excel. So when I hit export here, you'll notice I'll export it out to a PDF. I have a choice on how to sort it, last name, position, or department, and I'll go ahead and export this. And let me show you what the export looks like. First off, it's using those colors and those labels from what you just saw in the admin. All right, so there's the first page there. And then when we go down, this is where the sorting comes in because now we're going to show the details. Because you can imagine if I had many employees, let's say I had 50 employees that were all in this, good performance, medium potential. We don't want to have this big, massive box or to override all the names or stuff like that. So we cut it off at 8 names or 7 names, and we put a little plus however many. And then you can come down here and see everybody who is listed. And it's going to sort by whatever that option was that you selected. In my example, I did last name. So here's last name, as you can see, and here's how it is sorted right there. All right, so I can see that very clearly and easily in this report. And of course, we can also do this to Excel. And when we do it to Excel, the only difference is going to be those are going to be different sheets in the Excel workbook versus all one big one here. So let me show you this. I will switch this around just 1 second. Let Zoom catch up to me. All right, so again, here's your grid with your colors and everything. And again, we're limiting to 7 people. And then each sheet reflects the different boxes here. So you'll see 9 different sheets down here for each box. And of course, then the sorting is here. So very easy and nice to be able to export this data out and get it into Excel or PDF. So it was a great suggestion for the person who said we should need to do that. And we thank you for that there. Now, sometimes you might say, well, how do I even set up the 9-box grid and how do I get the data in there? Let me just show that very quickly. So this is available to both managers and, well, assuming you give them the security, managers and to the admin. So I'm going to go down. I'll pick some person at random. I don't think I've done this person before. And under their performance, I see succession planning. This is where that performance and potential is mapped for that employee. So Jonathan here, I'm going to say he's high performance, medium potential. and go ahead and save that change. That's how he gets added to the 9-box grid. This is also something that's available to the manager. If they go into here, they'll see team succession planning. They can select an employee. First off, they can see who they've already set up. Let me go to Fred. I haven't done anything on Fred yet. And I can set up his good performance, high potential right there. And now that would add him to the 9-box grid. All right. So nice little enhancement to the 9-box grid and exporting that out. Okay. We will talk about performance review report updates. So what we've done over there is the calculation method for the goals and everything has been carried over to those reports. So you're going to see the same type of thing over there with the scores and the weightings on that. So what we just talked about with the goal scoring has been carried over to the reports. So I didn't mention that, but that's what that is right there. And I skipped down to 9-box grid. So let's go ahead and throw one more poll up here before we move into applicant tracking. As I've mentioned a few times, I do want to reiterate this. We get a lot of these ideas, of course, not everything from the audience, but we get a lot of these good ideas and how do we make the system work and look better from you, from your feedback. So in the feature requests, we do encourage those. And you can see, I don't know who submitted these. I could probably go back and identify those people. I'm not going to call you out, but thank you for your enhancements and your suggestions for improvements there. So let's talk about some stuff in applicant tracking. Then I'll bring up the mobile app here and you'll see what's changed over there. So first off, we have some new things. First, there are actually requirements by Indeed, and it's around how the salary is shown in the open jobs. So if I go to jobs and click into one, I'm going to click into this account director one. I believe I haven't published this one out to. Let me remove the publishing to Indeed here just real quick. All right. So when I go out here, you'll notice that the salary field now has options for what do you want to do here. Depending on what you have published, you'll have different options. If you are publishing to Indeed, you will have 2 options. If you're not publishing to Indeed, you'll have 3. The salary description is how it works today. You can type in whatever you want, negotiable, something like that. All right. So negotiable would show up as far as the salary description. Now, Indeed doesn't support that. Indeed, it needs to be a number, or it can be blank, but it needs to be a number. I can't just put negotiable in there on Indeed. So what we can do is you can now say, well, let's show a range. And rather than putting the word negotiable, I'm going to put a range in here, and I'm going to say it's between 75,000 and 85,000. Now, this will now go to Indeed. Of course, I'll choose year here. This will go to Indeed, and they have salary fields, and it will show 75 to 85,000 a year. This will also show in the career portal. So our portal that we generate, it'll match up. That's a requirement that Indeed has, that your career site, if you have one, must match up to your job postings in Indeed so that you're not confusing or misleading candidates with different salaries available based off of different places where they can apply. Now, of course, if I do this here, it'll say 75,000 to 85,000 a year. If I wanted to say starting at 75,000, because maybe somebody, they got a ton of experience, they're just the number one account director in the country, and you're going to pay them a lot of money, you can, pay them whatever you want. Or maybe you have a fixed rate for this. You pay, the starting salary is always $75,000. This will say it is $75,000. So that's how you have those 3 options there. First off, a range. Second, it's going to start at 75,000 and you have the option there, or it is 75,000. All right. Now, the third option out there was to not show anything. So that would not show anything on the career site or on Indeed. Now, of course, you need to check, is that legal? Some states require you to show things. So, make sure you're not in, you're in compliance with your state and where you're posting your jobs. Now, how does that look here? Let me show you on the career site. I'll go out to this, and here you'll see 75,000 a year. And if I go out here and I change it to a range and I save it, and let me refresh. Now, I don't have an Indeed account to show this, but now you'll see there's 75 to 85,000 a year. And if I do nothing on the maximum, you'll notice not a requirement, it's going to say starting at 75,000. or from 75,000. All right, so that is the job posting salaries. Now, if I am publishing to Indeed, that salary description option is not an option for me any longer. So I can't choose salary description. I'll only be able to choose these two. If I already have salary description selected, when I publish it to Indeed, it'll make me, the system will pop up a box where you have to put in an amount. All right, now, well, let's talk about publishing it to Indeed and to other job sites. So currently, what you can do is go to a job, and just like I went to that job publishing site, I can say I want to publish it to the career site, to Indeed, to whatever. I can do that on a per job basis. What if I wanted every one of my jobs to go out to Indeed, or all of them but the CEO to go out to Indeed? You'll now see a new button when I select more than one job to publish, and this will mass publish out. So this is now going to mass publish out to different places. Let's say I want to do a private requisition to this. If I've already done that to some, I have the option to republish it. For the private requisition, that won't make any change, but let's say I have Indeed, it'll republish it to Indeed. All right, so that's going to handle that way. And so now it's going to go through, and now it says 2. Now I had, 6 selected or 5 selected. I already had it published to 3 of them. So that's why it only did it to 2. So it's not going to double up or something like that. It'll tell you how many it published. And now those are all published out to that one there. And then finally, you may have candidates who have attachments on their record. So if I go into my account director here and I go to, I'm just going to pick Frank here. I don't know if he has any attachments. Let's just see. So here, as you can see, I can preview this. So this is very similar to that thing with the expense reports in that I can look at this ahead of time. I don't need to download this first. I can just see it here in the browser. So a little simple thing like that. That's also available to the hiring manager within self-service. They can now preview instead of downloading. Of course, that does need to be shared with them. If it's not shared, they're not going to see it. But if it is shared, they will be able to see that there. All right, so those are our changes, enhancements to applicant tracking. We're going to put up another poll here. And I did tease that we're going to go to the mobile app. I do want to talk very quickly about the reports before I go into the mobile app here. So let me talk about a couple of report changes. This poll is over. I will kind of get ready for my reports here. So first off is we now have address label reports for a couple of formats for the Avery labels. If you use Avery labels, the 5160 and the 5162 are supported. So if you go into your HR reports and you search for your address labels, the address labels are under my demographics. And so here you'll see, I don't know why I chose address list instead of address labels. Address labels, now you have the format right here. All right, so you can choose 5160 or 5162. And then, of course, how do you want to do this? You want to group it. You want to, use the mailing address, whatever it is. You can, select those different options out there. And then it's going to create those in that format for those different labels. All right, so very simple like that. Okay, and if I wanted to export this is actually something that we'll talk about here also with reports. It's not going to export out in this exact format. When I export it out to, say, Excel, what it's going to do is going to export it out as a kind of an Excel-friendly format. Each employee will be a new row. So every employee will be a row on there. And rather than it being like, a column here and a column there and so forth, each person will be a row. And then, of course, once it's in Excel, you can do whatever you want to do in Excel. All right, now let's speak on the payroll reports because we did a very similar thing in payroll reports. So as you may be aware, a lot of these payroll reports are designed so they're very, friendly for looking at in PDF. So if I go to, let's say, this deduction summary report here, and I'm going to go ahead and just run it for this payroll. Let this run here. This looks really nice to, print out or to export out to PDF. And I can, certainly look at it on screen or save it or print it out or whatever I'm going to do here. And what if I wanted to export this out to Excel? So if I were to export it out to Excel, a lot of times systems will say, okay, well, I see Gary as this one row here, and then each one of these things is its own separate row, but his name is only on here once. So when you go to export it to Excel, it's kind of a mess because you got to copy the name down to each row, and that is not great. It's not a great user experience. So we've gone through our various payroll reports. And anytime we have a situation like this, let's say where the name is on one row, but then you got a lot of details, we formatted it to be very friendly for Excel. And when I'm saying that, let me show you here. I will export this one out to Excel, and now you'll see his name will be repeated over and over again for each line. So it'll make it very nice and easy for me to view this one. Let me, deduction summary report and show you here. His name will be repeated for each line, and everybody's name will be repeated, not just Gary, but everybody's name will be repeated for each line. So I can now easily do my, whatever I like to do in Excel. So if you're an Excel person, you like working in Excel, this should be a really nice enhancement here. You'll see there's Gary repeated, 8 or 9 times, whatever it is, for his record. Now the summary line is gone because you can obviously do your summaries in Excel, maybe do like a crosstab or something like that, or whatever. So we've done this to all of the different payroll reports, and I just mentioned the address labels. We did that there too. We're trying to make it friendly for the Excel export, so you don't have to do any type of massaging of the data to get it to look nice. All right, so we're going to put a poll up about that later. I apologize to my poll team. Okay, good. I'm glad you got that, Dax. The reports, I think that especially the second one, as somebody who's done payroll many times, I got really good at copying names from one line to the next when I didn't do that in other systems. So this should be very helpful to our friends who do reporting. All right, so finally, let's talk about the mobile app here. I got about 10 minutes to cover this, so give me one moment to share my phone. And you'll be able to see, we'll talk about some of these enhancements in the mobile app here. So apologize for the delay. Zoom is catching up to me. I was a little bit too fast for Zoom. And here we go. Okay. First off, is the icon has changed. So when this is updated in the App Store, which will be May 4th, you'll have a new app icon. And I hope I don't have problems here with my Wi-Fi. And let me just see here. Let's hope my doesn't do that. Otherwise, I'll have to join on my phone. But the app has changed, or the icon has changed. So currently, it's a triangle with a little dot on it. Not very unique on this. I'm going to join on my phone here because I don't know why my share is not working right. But the icon has changed. It's actually back to the kind of the criterion icon. So rather than it being orange, now what we've done is we've made it black. And so it's kind of in the Sage style, but in the format for, and I apologize, I don't know what's going on with my phone here. I've been having some issues with my network, and maybe if I change my network, it'll help out. I'm going to give it one last chance to work, and then we might have to send screenshots. So first off, let me go quickly. The app switcher here, the menu, this has changed. Previously, it was little circles with very similar icons. And again, I apologize, everybody. I don't know why Zoom and my phone are not cooperating today. It was working just fine. If I'm showing again, and hopefully if I'm not, somebody will chime in. So this right here, this grid has changed a little bit. Now, of course, this is going to be formatted for your phone. If you have like a smaller screen or something like that, you might have 2 columns of icons here versus 3. But you'll see here, of course, I can still go into, let's say, career and see the things in there. Now, under benefits, we've added life events. So this is a nice change in here. You no longer have to go back to the browser to do your life event changes. So if somebody has a new child or they get married or something like that, they can now do that through the mobile app or view their past life events through the mobile app. And then, of course, once this is approved, they can go ahead and they can do their enrollment. This is not new, but they can do their enrollment through there. So that is great to be able to do that through there. Now, I've talked about this actually kind of throughout here, which is that a lot of those things that say with let me go back to the approvals of timesheets. So if I'm a project manager, we've taken those same enhancements for highlighting behavior from self-service and we've brought them into mobile. Because the mobile, of course, is supposed to be your self-service in your hand or in your pocket. So that is what's there here. The reattestation for the time. So as an example, if I go to my timesheet and I change something here, that is now supported in here. Let me go to yesterday and perhaps change my time here from 9:21 to 7:21. When I apply, there it is, that attestation message. All right, so that applies over here as well. And I would save that. And of course, that's going to save into self-service. So I'd be able to view that over there. All right. Another thing is if you have segregated security profiles, we see this a lot where you might have somebody who gets access to some employees. Let's say when they're a hiring manager, they get access to some employees, but they may get access to other employees when they are doing timesheet approvals or something like that. So you may have segregated security profiles that allow people access to various employees. You'll now be able to switch those security profiles here in the mobile app. That's not something we supported previously. What you would do is you would click on your picture up here, and if you had them, you'd be able to switch them right there. I believe it's right here up at the top where you can switch your security profiles. So you would just click on your little icon, and then you'd be able to switch to your other security profiles. I don't have that configured here, but that's where that will be, and now that is supported there. Another thing that's supported that I almost was showing this is offline mode. So now we did have it before. What we've done is we've cleaned it up a little bit. There were some issues with it not working a lot. We spent a lot of time making sure that the offline mode was very consistent. Offline mode is for clocking in and out. We don't support offline mode for everything because we do need to talk to the server, for example, to see candidates or to do your life events or those other things that are on your employee profile. But when you're clocking in and out, if you're offline, and I'm not, I can't show my phone if I was offline, but if you're offline, it will save your punches, whether you're clocking in or you're clocking out. And then when it gets back into coverage, whether it's Wi-Fi or mobile, you will then have those punches synchronized. So we spent some time making sure that worked well, and it now works really great in the mobile app there. So that, in fact, has been updated. It was updated in the previous release, but we're making sure that everybody knows that exists there. Under recruiting. So under the recruiting here, you'll have more access to your employee or your candidates. Now, you did have access previously to hit candidates, but you couldn't see everything on those candidates. So here's an example like Frank Smith. You didn't have everything available here under this bar. So I do have things like I can see their education, skills, and competencies, but we've added more that you can see here in the mobile app. So you can go to the discussions, you can see attachments and so forth over here. So I'm able to see this over here. I'm able to contribute to this. Here I was talking about those previews for this. I can see the discussion, or it's not the discussion. I can see a preview of this document if I want to. You'll see here, this will open up in right there. I don't have to download it. Whoops. It crashed. Oh my goodness. I don't know what happened there. So I will need to check with our developers on that one. I am using the latest updates, so perhaps there's something out there and they'll be able to do that there. The last thing is that we added an ability to do income assignment workflows. What that means is that when you add something to an employee's income screen in payroll, it will ask for an approval, or you can have an approval on that. And so we've added that into the inbox here within the mobile app. So as I go in here, I don't have one in here, but if I did, I would see incomes in here, and I can do the approvals through the mobile app as well. So again, it's all about making sure that everything that's in self-service is here in mobile, and we'll continue adding those and making sure that it is very much on the same playing field, the same abilities are there in the system. All right, so I do want to bring up my slide deck here. Let me stop this share and switch over to, where did it go? There it is. There's my release plan. And I believe it is showing my slide deck here. We're talking about the release plan, as I mentioned, is May 4th. I do want to bring up our learning series webinars. So we're going to, of course, continue these. We do recognize that next week is Sage Future, and is possible you're going to be at Sage Future, so you may miss the one next week, which is on surveys. After that, we're going to cover offer letters, and then we do have some ones coming up for changes around like scheduling and things like that. So look forward to future things as we move into the summer months. Of course, the end of May and into June and July, we'll have a calendar of events out there. Last but not least, I do want to thank you for attending today. We do appreciate your continued support and enhancements and feature requests. We do love those, and I also want to support. Am I still showing mobile? Is it not showing? I apologize. There we go. Up, we have a poll. I do apologize. I didn't know I was still showing the mobile. Little technical snafus here at the end. I want to apologize about that there. But our upcoming learning series webinars, as this poll is ending here. So surveys next week. If you're at Future, you can come by our booth and you can say hi to me and our team over there. And if you do have any, enhancements, perhaps we can talk about them and how we can make the mobile app, self-service, payroll, whatever, better going into the future. Thank you for your feedback on the mobile application there. And then in a couple of weeks, we'll be talking about offer letters. And as I mentioned, of course, we have our plans going forward into the summer months for other enhancements out there. All right. And finally, like I said, thank you for joining us today. I do want to give a huge shout out and thank you to our development team. They work miracles. And so I do want to thank them. A couple of them are in the chat. So thank you guys for all your hard work and everything. And we do appreciate that. We're looking forward to all the new enhancements coming throughout the year. So again, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.